Okay, so let's start with dodging. As you remember from the previous video with the local dodging and burning with both local and global, I'm just going to retouch slightly the skin. I'm just going to even out the skin, and with the global dodge and burn I will be shaping the model's face, however respecting of course the natural shape and the lighting that was created in the first place during the photo shoot. So let's start with local dodge and burn. I'm just going to open this folder and we will be working with dodging, which means we will be making selected areas in the image brighter. So let's zoom out and remember that this is not a beauty retouch. If we were working on a beauty retouch, we will be really working with a very huge zoom, with a really huge magnification, and we will be really looking closely at every pore in her skin. However, as I've mentioned before, this is not a beauty retouch, that's a portrait, and such a huge magnification is not needed. During the dodge and burn stage, we'll be addressing certain selected areas in the picture, like the area under her eye or those lines beside the nose. However, we want to maintain the natural look of the model. So let's select the dodge adjustment layer and let's select brush. So either hit B on your keyboard or you can select brush from the Photoshop toolbar. Now, having the brush selected, it's important to set opacity and flow. Opacity 100% is fine. Remember to keep flow really low. So we are going to be working with the values between 2 and 5%. Let's maybe start with 3% and we'll see how it goes. The last thing to set here is to select this airbrush build-up icon. That way you will be able to strengthen the effect simply by pressing and holding your brush. You don't have to hit several times to make the stroke stronger. So set opacity to 100, flow to 3% and select the airbrush icon. And having the brush selected, remember the same as we were working before with the spot healing brush, you can increase or decrease size of the brush simply by hitting left or right square bracket on your keyboard. So let's set size brush around this value and let's right click on the image. What is important here is to set hardness of your brush to 0%. We will be working with a very soft brush. So I am having selected one of these soft brushes, very soft edge, and let's set hardness at 0. So having the brush set that way, let's slightly focus in a little bit more, maybe not as much. And having the mask of the dodge layer selected, we will be revealing now this effect by painting with soft brush with white color on a black mask. So remember to set these values for the colors that way. Simply hit D on your keyboard. This will reset any colors. If you have any other colors positioned here, simply by hitting D, they will be set to default black and white, and by hitting X on your keyboard you can swap between black and white. So we will have the black mask. To make these adjustments visible in the image, we have to be painting with white color, so I need to hit X. I swap these color samples and now I have brush selected with a white color. So now I'm just going to be painting over darker areas in the picture that I would like to make more even, that I would like to actually brighten up a little bit. This technique takes a lot of practice to master, so you need to be patient. However, it really pays off. So what we are doing now is we are painting in a very subtle way over these slightly darker areas in the picture that we would like to even out a little bit. Notice that while I'm painting, this result is almost not visible. However, you can very quickly check the result by switching on and off the layer. So with these very few strokes, I have already achieved a little bit more of the effect that I'm after. Never overdo this, it's better to work in a subtle way and to build up this effect gradually. So just keep zooming in and out to really see what you are doing. We can try to retouch this part. So to do this I have to zoom out quite strongly, and I'm just simply painting over this darker patch. That way I will be able to make the luminosity levels of the adjacent areas of the skin the same value as the targeted area. So if I switch off and on, you can see that working that way the adjustment is very subtle, but that's the power of the dodging and burning technique. Since this way you can really perfect the skin, you can really perform very powerful adjustments that will be seamlessly blended in your final image. So let's zoom out again and let's get back to the eye area. I'm just going to make this shadow under her eye a little bit less visible. However, I want to maintain the texture of the skin. I want to keep the natural look. So let's switch off and on the layer and let's get back maybe to this area on the nose. And let's get back to the forehead. It's really important to zoom in and out, because if I would be working on such a strong magnification, you can really get lost in all those tiny details. However, very often these very small details won't be visible in your final presentation. So depending on where do you want to display the image, if it's just for the web, it's very often not needed to go into all these small details. For the sake of this course, I just want to show you what can be done with this technique, and you should be able to perform all these adjustments, and then depending on the image that you are working with, you can decide to which degree, to which level you want to retouch, and what can be just left simply because it's not needed to work on such details. So let's just move over closer to the nose and notice that just within a few seconds we already performed quite a strong adjustment. Here we need to be more careful. I just want to make this line slightly less visible. However, I don't want to get rid of this completely. So let's paint over it in a very subtle way. I'm working very quickly for the sake of this presentation, for the sake of this course. You can spend much more time, you can be much more precise. So let's make this shadow a little bit less visible as well, to even out the skin a little bit more here. Let's not paint over this brighter patch, since it will make it brighter as well. Let's keep it as it is, and let's just paint over those darker areas. So in case of this image, the initial setting flow to 3% is working quite well. Let's move over here and make these areas a little bit brighter as well. Let's switch on and off the layer. So as you can see, working that way with a soft brush with white color, we can gradually build up the effect and really retouch the skin in a very beautiful way. So let's zoom out and let's switch this layer on and off. I would like to make this line brighter. So let's maybe switch on the mask. I'm just going to press and hold Alt key and click on the mask. That way I can see what I have painted already, And as you can see here, I have already painted quite strongly. I have covered this area on the image with white color, so it means that within this adjustment layer I'm not going to achieve any further brightening effect. So let's get back to the image. I'm pressing and holding Alt key and clicking on the mask. If I would like to make this area brighter, I would have to create another dodge adjustment layer, which I'm going to do. So let's move over to this icon in the middle and let's select curves again. Let's rename this layer to dodge 2, so I'm just going to call it D2, and let's select the thumbnail. Here I'm going to add a control point and move it upwards as well, and I'm just going to invert the mask. So having the mask selected, I'm just hitting Command I. I'm going to be painting again with a soft brush, exactly the same as on the previous layer, since I'm not able to make this area brighter on this first adjustment layer. I have to multiply the effect of brightening. So having the mask of my second dodging layer selected, I will be painting again with my brush, and that way I will be able to target this specific area. It's better to create several adjustment layers rather than move the control point on the first adjustment layer much further upwards. So that way I have more control over the technique, I have more flexibility, and if I'm not happy with this adjustment, I can simply get rid of this adjustment layer. I can simply delete it without affecting other areas. Since the first dodge adjustment layer was taking care not only of this area here, I was working on the area around the eye, on the chin. So with the second adjustment layer dodging, I'm just focusing simply on this area beside the nose, and if I'm not happy with the effect, I can just get rid of it without removing all the other adjustments that were already performed. So now I'm building up the effect further. I just want to make this transition a little bit smoother to make this line a little bit less visible. Let's zoom out and let's check if we are not overdoing. We can still make it tiny, a little bit brighter. So let's keep working with the soft brush with white color, and in this very subtle way we are making this area brighter. Let's work a little bit on the middle part. Okay, so we are almost there. Remember to change size of your brush to adjust it to the area you are working on. Remember to work with left and right square bracket on your keyboard. Let's move over to the right hand side. Let's zoom out. And now I'm going to switch off these both dodge adjustment layers, and you can see that the effect is quite striking. So let's zoom out, and that's the starting point, and after performing dodging we have achieved this effect. So let's have a look if there is any other areas in the image that should be treated. Let's get back to the first dodging adjustment layer, and I'm going to work on this shadow under the eye a little bit further. So as I've mentioned before, for the sake of this video, I'm working really quickly. You can be much more precise, and it's really important to perform dodging and burning the same as the initial cleanup in a proper way. It really pays off to spend time, to be patient, and to get your image to the point where you are happy, and then any other color adjustments will be really pleasure to work with. So I can say that at this point I'm happy with the local dodge, So that's the starting point, that's the result I have achieved. I'm not going to be working on these shadows on the chin, on her nose, as I've mentioned before at the very beginning when we are evaluating this image. This is the lighting that was set. So when it comes to burning, I'm not going to really be burning this image. There is no need. There are no bright areas that should be darkened. So I'm just going to simply leave the burning adjustment layer untouched. I don't have to switch it on and off since it's not affecting the image at all. All we need to do now, the next step, is to change the blend mode of these adjustment layers to luminosity. Since the adjustment was quite strong, and if I switch off the helper, you can see that beside brightening of selected areas, we have made them more saturated. So to avoid this side effect, let's simply select these adjustment layers and change their blend mode to luminosity. Let's repeat this for the second dodge adjustment layer. Let's select luminosity. So that way we are not making the color stronger, we are simply working with the luminosity levels in the photograph. That's how our color image looks like after performing dodging, local dodging, and that's the black and white version. So in this video we have performed the local dodging and burning, we have corrected the skin of the model, and let's now move over to the next clip when we will be working on shaping the face with global dodge and burn.